Hello, everybody. We are back today for another part of our Thanksgiving special here. Today, we've got Mike Gaul here today. Mike, we're excited to have you with us again. Thank you for being here. Mike, I just want to ask you a couple questions specifically about the organ. So, Mike, how long have you been playing the organ exactly?
Oh, I don't know. We won't just say how long it's been, but when I started, I was in high school. So I started actually my first experience with the organ was playing at church at an Episcopal church, and so it was what you call on-the-job training. Yeah.
On-the-job training. Hey, that sounds like a lot of us when we go off to work everywhere. Sometimes we have to learn on the job. So, Mike, what exactly does it take to learn on the job exactly?
Oh, for the organ? Well, the difference between organ and piano is that the organ is all about planning. You have to work out ahead of time what you're going to do and have the instrument ready there to support you. And once you've done the planning, I think it's an easier instrument to play than the piano. It doesn't have the physicality that a piano does. I mean, you can make this thing really loud just by playing the same way you would play if you were really soft, but again, planning is part of it because it doesn't instinctively do what you want it to do.
Right, exactly. Yeah, planning music, especially planning your rehearsals, that's so important, especially for organ, because it takes a lot of different moving parts. So, Mike, would you mind possibly showing us in just a moment?
Sure.
But I do have one more question to ask before he shows us everybody. Mike, it's Thanksgiving week. We're so excited to have you here at Cannon with us. Mike, what are you most thankful for?
Well, other than my family, I think this organ. We've had this for a few years now, and it's really been a blessing for the church and a blessing for me because I've enjoyed playing it so much. And so, yeah, in a moment I'll spend some time to explain what's going on with this thing.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
Mike, thank you for being here at Cannon. Thank you for playing for us each and every Sunday. Mike, why don't you go ahead and show us what it takes to play this organ?
Sure. So you've been seeing this instrument every Sunday morning for a long time. We've had this for probably 4 or 5 years, and it's really been a blessing. And but I'd like to today give you kind of a behind-the-scenes look at how the instrument works and why it looks the way it does. It can be very intimidating if you don't know what you're looking for, but you break it down, and it's actually pretty simple. So first of all, this is an electronic instrument. However, it's built in order to work like and hopefully sound like a pipe organ. Now, they've been building pipe organs for the last 500 years, and when they first started building them, of course, you didn't have electricity, you didn't have a lot of things, and they were purely mechanical. There was wind, compressed air, and lots of mechanical linkages. So a key at the console would be connected to something way up there. Okay. So what's way up there? All right. You have a wind chest. You've got a big box of wind, a box of air, compressed air, and on the top of the box you have channels that are running from front to back, and over each of the channels, that's where the pipes sit. So over one channel you have, say, all the pipes for middle C, and over the next channel you might have the pipes for G, and the next next channel might be pipes for another C or something. They could be in almost any order. And what happens is that when you press a key, it opens up a valve that lets air into the channel that's under all those pipes. Well, when you're playing the organ, you don't always hear all the pipes every time you play a key. I mean, you'd be, pull all these stops over, you don't hear everything all the time. So what controls what you hear? Well, crosswise to those channels, there are these sliders, right? And the sliders have holes in them, and when you pull on one of these stops, if this were a pipe organ, you'd actually be moving the slider way up there. You'd move the slider. The air would now pass through to the pipe. And if the slider was in the other position, closed, the pipe gets no air. So it's like geometry, you know, you have X, Y coordinates. You have the X coordinate for the key, and you have the Y coordinates for the stops. So let's see what kinds of pipes or what kinds of sounds this one key can make, okay? So I press this key, oh, nothing. Okay, let me pull one of these out. Okay, this is a stop called stopped diapason, okay? It's just a name. This is one called open diapason. Here's one called 4-foot octave. Oh. Well, wait a minute. They all have different sounds. Well, why do they have different sounds? Well, the dimensions of the pipe will tell you what kind of sound it will have. And so, for example, a big wide pipe will have a fluty sound. So, you know, or this one, or this kind of flute, or this kind. The other thing is that you'll see is that the stops, well, you won't see from here, but I'll tell you, the stops are marked 8s, 4s, 2s. Well, what do they mean? Well, this stop is marked 8-foot stopped diapason. Well, that means that the lowest note on the keyboard if this were a pipe organ, that would be an 8-foot long pipe, 8 foot long. Well, here's a 4-foot octave. Well, it's an octave higher. So this one key actually plays 2 different notes, and actually could play a third one. This one's called a 15th. Okay, and the reason you do this is so that you can have a sound that will cut through without being heavy. Because if you just had a whole bunch of 8-foot stops and nothing else, it's a little bit heavy sound. You'd like it to be maybe a little brighter, so you put on some 4s and 2s, and so you. Okay. The other trick that they'll do is there's some pipes that are called reed stops, and so instead of working like a flute or really more like a recorder, they have reeds in them and then different shaped resonators, so you can get different reed sounds. Or and so on. You can do different reed stops. So why 3 keyboards? Why, or 2, or however many your particular organ happens to have? Why do you have multiple keyboards? Well, I mentioned that there was a wind chest up there, and that a particular key opened a particular valve. Well, in a large instrument, there'll be multiple wind chests, and so this keyboard up here, the top keyboard, the swell it's sometimes called, that's going to be connected to an entirely different wind chest, and a different set of channels and a different set of pipes, and sometimes it's easier to build an instrument with more smaller wind chests than it is to have one big, huge, ginormous one, you know. And this organ here has 3 keyboards for the hands, and it's got another keyboard down here for the feet. And so the same things that you can do on a use some stops here. You can have, I'm pressing a note here down here with my foot. You can hear, here's some bass sounds, and then here's some more bass, more higher pitch. Oh, here's some reeds, and here's some more things. And, oh, here's a really, you can't hear this on your computer. Yeah, okay, so. You can play things with your feet. And so in some ways this makes the organ easier to play because you have more things that you can play with. You don't have to dash around trying to do everything with just two hands. You spread the work around a little bit more than that. In traditional pipe organs, most of the pipes were out in the open. So the only way you could change the volume was to just add and subtract stops, and so that's all you had. Now, what they started to do is they would take one of the wind chests and they would put it in a box, and they called that the swell box, swell, and so you could do things like this. Because the box would have a shutter on it, like Venetian blinds. You think of it like that, and when you closed it, there's a pedal down here that can close the box. And you'll notice they do something rather nice with this instrument is the pedal isn't just a volume control, it muffles the sound so that you really feel like it's being closed up in a box when you're doing this. So, nice and bright. And more muffled. So these are all the different things that the instrument can bring into play in order to sort of create the illusion that you're playing on a pipe organ. Another thing I'll mention, there's no way you can hear it on your computers, but if you're standing in the sanctuary, what you'll notice is that the whole back wall has speakers going from left to right, and they're arranged in such a way that as you play different notes, the sound sounds like it's coming from different parts of the back, in the same way that a pipe organ would have a different, the different pipes would be in different locations, and you'd hear this movement. And you can hear that when you're here in person in the sanctuary, but you can't, of course, you can't get it over the wire, because you don't have that sort of stereo. What are these things? Okay, well, there are these numbered buttons, so you might not be able to see them from where you're standing, but on a Sunday morning you'll see them, and you'll see that I'll press them from time to time and do things with them. And what that is it's a storage device. And so you notice that when I press them, these stops move in and out. Well, so that I don't have to think about it on Sunday morning, I can set certain stop combinations that I want for a particular piece, and then I use one of these combination pistons as memory, and I can store them on the piston, and then on Sunday morning all I have to do is press the piston and so it also means that you can change from one set of sounds to another quite quickly, just as fast as it takes to. Which is something that a 500-year-old pipe organ really wasn't quite able to do. Well, that's the beginning of it. There's a lot to see, but I know you're short on time and you have to get back to your Thanksgiving dinner. And so again, thank you for your time, and we'll see you Sunday.